popularity the president has received is because of the victory from terrorism.
Oh,
you know, ridding the country of a 3-decade-long war. Obviously, that catapulted him into popularity. And the development that has followed so far. But then there was also the 18th Amendment that came about, where the terms for the executive presidency were removed. And how would you view something like that? Wouldn't that really bother the SLFPers who really, as you said, wanted a change?
It bothers the SLFPers. They voted for it, but now they think that they made a mistake, I believe. They can't do anything about it. It bothers the SLFPers, but I'm not sure it bothers the country. And when it bothers the country, they won't vote for Mahinda Rajapaksa anymore. I mean, they'll vote for somebody else. Having won the war and ushered in peace is not going to last Mahinda Rajapaksa for the rest of his life. But it's still working. It's still working because people still remember the way it was. Now, it doesn't mean that he can't be beaten. But someday he will be beaten by somebody who offers something beyond that. Not somebody who evokes memories which go back into the past, an unsuccessful past. President Kumaratunga was an unsuccessful president in meeting the main challenge of ushering in peace and by defeating the Tigers. Mahinda Rajapaksa succeeded. So you don't move from a success to somebody who was a failure. You move from success to somebody who can build on that success while rectifying the mistakes that the successful wartime president has made.
So, in a sense, you are saying, Doctor, that President Rajapaksa became a successful president because he was able to defeat terrorism.
Absolutely.
But all presidents before him are unsuccessul because they could not do that.
Absolutely.
So that does include President Bandaranaike,
Jayatilleka, Premadasa Chandrika.
So that you are billing all of them as unsuccessful leaders based on this reason.
Absolutely, and I worked with President Premadasa. I mean, he was successful in removing the IPK, he was successful in quelling the southern insurrection, he was successful in ushering in a model of development which twinned growth with equity. But he was not successful in doing the main thing, which is why he died, and his entire experiment was dismantled. So they were all unsuccessful in the main thing. Mahinda Rajapaksa was successful. On top of which, he's got this personal appeal. Now, I never thought he was charismatic. I don't think Sri Lanka's had a charismatic political personality since Vijay Kumaratunga, as far as I know. But President Obama's campaign manager, David Axelrod, has said that the candidate is the message. So, you're really talking about a popularity contest. That's what a presidential election is. And it comes down to two people, Mahina, because even if you have 5 or 6, you have the runoff, and finally it's down to 2. Now, Mahinda Rajapaksa is very, very gifted. He's a natural when it comes to popular appeal. He's a people person. There's a certain warmth about him. Now, Chandrika has never faced that kind of opponent. She's fought Ranayaka and Srima. So, I don't think she's qualified to compete with Mahinda Rajapaksa, who's won a war on the terrain of popular appeal. It doesn't mean that there aren't others who can give him a run for his money, but it's neither Chandrika nor Ranil. If it's Chandrika, I'm not sure the UNP will vote for her, because I mean she has to get the UNP vote plus the dissident SLFP vote. If it's Mr. Wickramasinghe, I'm going by the present statistics, not by any prejudices on my part. The present statistics show that the gap between the UNP and the government, and I'm talking about the provincial council elections, the gap is bigger than the percentage polled by the UNP. The UNP has between 25 and 26%. The government has 55%. And that's a 30% gap, whereas the UNP has got 25%. I mean, you know, this is crazy. the breadth of the UNP vote, that's 26%. If you take that and you stand it upright, it still doesn't bring you up to what the government has. So in order to get from where they are to be able to beat the government, the UNP has to not just double, but more than double what it's getting. And Mahinda Rajapaksa, I believe, is more popular than his government. He'll get more. That 55% this time at the provincial election, that's his base. It's not his ceiling. But Mr. Wickramasinghe is less popular than the UNP. So the 26% is his ceiling. It's not his base. It doesn't have to be this way, but it's up to the UNP. If they put in Mr. Wickramasinghe, or if Madam Kumaratunga is a common candidate, you're going to have such a big gap that Mahinda Rajapaksa is going to get more. The gap is going to be bigger than the vote that his main opponent gets, and that's going to be very sad. Though I think, I have no problem with President Rajapaksa as president. I think it's cool. But if it's a cakewalk, then what happens next? What happens is that he goes in for the parliamentary election immediately, and he will, or those around him will get him to remove all the SLFers who come from the Chandrayaka Kumaratunga days, or who have been dissenting, or who could be a threat down the road. Not to him, because there's nobody there who can be a threat to Mahinda Rajapaksa, but to someone else. So they will put in clones and courtiers as nominees for the parliamentary election. The SLFP will change completely. And they will get their 2/3 again. If they don't, they'll do it the usual way. Because the UNP will be down to half its present size, and heartbroken, some of the people who are elected, maybe 20 will be elected, 25, 5 will go across the next morning. And you will have the 2/3 all over again. Now, as I said, it doesn't have to be that way. Because if there is a close fought race, and President Rajapaksa wins, that's okay. There will be an immediate knock-on effect on the parliamentary election, and the opposition will do very well in parliament. The 2/3 will disappear, and who knows, like the A9, the road will be open again, and traffic may start moving the other direction. So it's entirely up to the opposition to make the right choice. Either they can make a fight of this, and then break through at the parliamentary election, which will be in less than a year. We're talking April, and before next April, you will have the second election, not the first. The first will be much before that. Either you do that, or they proceed in the funny way they're doing now. It's really hilarious.
Because we thought they would do that with the Western Provincial Council being held.
Yeah.
Everyone was hoping that the UMP would actually come out as a revitalized party ahead of the Western Provincial Council, which is their stronghold. But we did not see that happen. And now we have a presidential election, as you said, which may be in January next year. Do they have enough time to get their act together and field a candidate that could really be a challenge to President Rajapaksa?
Mahina,
or will they blame it on their constitution, saying it's a difficult constitution to really change, the UMP constitution?
That is old American story, work of fiction, called The Purloined Letter, Edgar Allan Poe. And the mystery, everybody's looking for the letter. But the letter is on the mantelpiece. That's why nobody looks for it. Because it's so obvious. It's on the mantelpiece. Now, I think there's an obvious answer deriving from the statistics. Going only by the facts. Mao Zedong and then Deng Xiaoping used to say, seek truth from facts. So I try to do that. What are the facts? The facts are that the Rajapaksas, President Rajapaksa and then later the family, took over in 2005. Before that, the Rajapaksas were not the ruling family. But there is one politician in the opposition, just one, who has been fighting the Rajapaksas in Rajapaksa territory from 2000, and that's Sajith Premadasa. Because he decided not to contest in Colombo and to go down to Hambantota. So he is the only guy who has been up close and personal fighting, competing against the Rajapaksas in what is their fiefdom, it's their home turf. Now, you have a guy who's been fighting the Rajapaksas from 2000. Then in 2005, you have one of the Rajapaksas becoming the president. And then he's a successful president, and you've got the family coming into politics. Nobody has faced that machine before, apart from this one guy. He's the only guy who has practiced. He only one who knows what it is to face that bowling. He's been an MP, he's held his seat, and the UNP has held its vote in the Deep South from the year 2000, thanks to Sajith Premadasa. Now, this time we know the statistics. The campaign was led by the president, but even more so by young Nama Rajapaksa in the south. The UNP increased its vote, increased its percentage, didn't do so anywhere else except Kalutara, just fractionally. And the percentage of abstentions dropped. So the UNP was able to pull more people out from apathy and get them to vote than it was in any other place. And this was done while fighting the very powerful Rajapaksa machine on its home turf. Now that doesn't mean that Sajith Premadasa can beat Mahinda Rajapaksa, but it means that he's the only guy who's ever fought these guys. He fought them for 14 years, and he knows how to run a campaign even in the Deep South. Now if he can do that in the Deep South, he can do that anywhere in the country, and he can do better anywhere in the country. But what we saw during the election is that the person who lost 5,000 votes for the UNP in Colombo Central, Mr. Wickramasinghe, is still being talked about as the UNP candidate. So if you can't do well in Colombo Central, you can't do well anywhere. But if you can do well in Tissa Maharama, you can do well anywhere. Those are the facts. Now if the UNP wants to ignore those facts, that's up to them. If Mr. Sajith Premadasa thinks that he shouldn't be candidate, or he doesn't want to assert himself or whatever, that's up to him. It's not up to us. But for the first time, we have a phenomenon, a new phenomenon. What is that phenomenon? The opposition is multipolar, Mahina. It's no longer overwhelmingly dominated by the UNP. General Fonseca's party and the JVP in some places have polled as much or more than the UNP. That's shocking. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I'm saying it's unthinkable. But it's thanks to Mr. Wickramasinghe that a UNP which was dominant in the opposition space is now just a little bigger than the other two put together. Now, if a person who was responsible for that splintering of the opposition vote and the emergence of these other power centers is the candidate, what is the logic there? He's not going to be able to pull back these voters who went to the other parties. He's not going to be able to get those who have stayed away to come and vote. He's not going to be able to mobilize, enthuse, motivate. The UNP MPs and Pradesh Sabha chaps are not going to work for Mr. Wickramasinghe. Mm-hmm. So the UNP has to decide. Now look at the fiasco in Mattala. It is shocking and disgraceful that the government politicians behave in that way, especially when the government is under international scrutiny. On the other side of this coin, it's really dumb of the UNP parliamentarians to have gone into what is Rajapaksa controlled territory without taking with them the one man who is one of their colleagues who has demonstrated that he has a mass base in Hambantota. And that's Sajith Premadas. I mean, how can you parachute in from Colombo into the toughest area where General Fonseca himself didn't campaign? I mean, you can't think of anybody tougher than that. But Sajith fought the Rajapaksas in a campaign where General Fonseca himself tactically withdrew from because it was so rough. Now, how could the UNP MPs think that they could go there into this, I mean, it's like a family fiefdom, without going with the guy who has the base there? What kind of politics is this? I've never heard of anything of that sort. I mean, do you think you can go to Jaffna and do politics just flying from Colombo without a contact there, whether it's a TNA or any other party who has a real local base? It doesn't work that way. That's not the way you do politics. So there's something, as the kids say, hello, I mean, there's something really missing in the seriousness with which the UNP is currently doing its politics.
Well, on that note, we're going for a short commercial break. When we come back, we'll be talking more about the presidential election and also about the elections that are taking place in the world's largest democracy. Stay with us.